Oh, excellent. Where, like, hurry the up, guys. What do you guys? You guys are very quick about it. Jesus. Right.
We are learning more about the suspect who barricaded himself in a Virginia home before it exploded Monday was known to the FBI. Police say they were serving a search warrant for 56-year-old James Yu at the time of the blast. The FBI says Yu contacted them multiple times over several years. Now, local officials say they are looking into concerning posts involving conspiracy theories. Yu is presumed to have died in the blast. And here's a note worth mentioning. Authorities said that they turned off the gas service and evacuated neighbors, which likely saved lives before that blast went off.
Just doing some preliminary testing with this 4,000 watt inverter. Pulling about 2,000 watts, holding 13.7. I didn't charge the Tahoe before I started this, so it's sitting like 14.6. 180 amps out. Got the lights going in here, and portable air conditioner blowing onto a heat gun just to use wattage. A soldering iron running, a couple battery chargers going. Not bad. Now I got the air compressor running in the back shed. AC's about to turn the compressor on. 1.6 kilowatts. Turn the heat gun on. 2.7 kilowatts. AC starts to turn the compressor on. It's kind of cold outside. Easy peasy. Here we have idle draw, about an amp at 15 volts, holding 121 output volts.
Something most globe believers are shocked to learn is that so-called flat earthers like myself actually agree that the Earth is not flat. The Oxford Dictionary defines flat, when used as an adjective, as being smooth and even, without marked lumps or indentations. The Earth most certainly has lumps and indentations across its expanse in the form of hills, mountains, and valleys, peaks and troughs from the heights of Mount Everest to the depths of the Mariana Trench, and in that sense, the world is definitely not flat. There is more than one definition of flat, however, and when used as an adverb, for example, the Oxford Dictionary defines flat as being in a horizontal position. When flat earthers call the Earth flat, not a single one is denying the existence of hills, mountains, and valleys, but rather we are affirming the Earth to be situated in a horizontal position, as a level plane, and denying the existence of spherical curvature claimed by globe defenders. So the Earth may not be perfectly flat, but one thing that always remains so are large bodies of water at rest. The Earth is claimed to be approximately 71% covered in water, all of which is demonstrably horizontal and level. It is the natural physics of water and other liquids to remain flat when contained and undisturbed. This fundamental physical property of water is why it has been used by builders and engineers as a leveling tool for millennia. Whether in a bucket, a bathtub, a pool, pond, lake, or ocean, the surface of water at rest always remains horizontal and doesn't have the ability to show convexity or any shape whatsoever upon its surface. This fact is easily demonstrable and empirically verifiable, but completely at odds with what we are told about the globe. If Earth was truly a sphere, covered 71% in water, the oceans would have to be somehow curving around and sticking to all sides of a rapidly spinning ball suspended in space. In reality, it is simply impossible to make water behave this way. As anyone can experiment for themselves, bodies of water will not stick to the underside of a ball, and cannot show convexity or any other shape upon their surface. Furthermore, while the entire Earth may not be flat, vast expanses ranging hundreds of miles, from the Great Plains of America to the salt flats of Bolivia, do not vary in elevation more than a few inches or a few feet over their entirety. For example, the Pampas of South America form a bare horizontal surface of nearly 1,000 miles from the Andes to the Atlantic. The Llanos of the Orinoco form a plain of grass larger than the entire country of France, 250,000 square miles as flat as the surface of the sea. The area between the Carpathian and Ural Mountains also exhibits nearly a perfectly dead level, scarcely rising at all over its 1,500 miles. In a 2003 experiment done by university geography professors using topographical geodetic surveys, found that the state of Kansas in America was actually flatter than a pancake. Measuring with a confocal laser microscope, the flatness ratio of a pancake figured to 0.957, whereas the entire state of Kansas, covering 80,000 square miles, was determined to have an incredible flatness ratio of only 0.9997, making it literally flatter than a pancake. The Bolivian salt flats cover an area of 3,900 square miles, so flat that after rainfall, a thin layer of dead, calm water transforms it into the world's largest mirror, perfectly reflecting the sky over its entire expanse. In fact, every continent on Earth actually features plains several hundred miles in extent, so much so that the National Geographic Society claims more than 1/3 of the world's land areas are plains. This means that in addition to the 71% of Earth's landmass that is covered in flat, level water, approximately another 1/3 of the remaining land areas are also flat and level, giving a grand total of over 80%. Therefore, the question globe believers should be asking themselves is, if over 80% of the Earth is proven to be covered in flat plains and level water, how could it possibly be a sphere? And if over 80% of the Earth is empirically and demonstrably composed of flat lands and flat water, where is the sense and reason in assuming the remaining 20% to be globular? The remaining lands are composed of hills, mountains, and valleys, which are admittedly not flat, but with changes in elevation always in relation to sea level and a horizontal horizon. So the Earth may not be 100% flat, depending on which definition you're using, but it is certainly at least 80% covered in flat lands and flat water. And the remaining 20%, no matter how you try to squeeze and force fit it into the heliocentric model, is impossible.
We are living in a villain's world, and they designed it perfectly. We eat the food they give us, vote for one of two people that they tell us to, and watch the movies that they show. They take our attention as soon as we reach age 5, and they never give it back. We go to school for 8 hours a day learning what they want us to. They scold us until we obey, and then they praise us when we do. They make us form a habit of waking up and spending our entire day in a building that we wouldn't choose, so that when we get older, we are willing to do the same. Following orders becomes comfortable when we spend our childhood doing what we're told, so when we're older, we hesitate to stray outside the norm. They tell us that we should do anything we can to attend a university, because if we don't, we will fail. They manipulate us into financial dependency at a young age so that we stay liable to the system. They've given us a currency that only has value because they say it does, and we receive it by working at a business that they own. Their millions become billions while the rest of us are forced to sacrifice our time for a minuscule fraction of what our work gains for them. They provide us housing, but make it costly so that we struggle to accumulate enough wealth to escape their system. Our supermarkets are full of brands that they possess, to the point that it is difficult to find ones that they don't. Our meals are either purchased from a store that they most likely own, or created with ingredients from their brands. They tamper with the food they give us and pump them with toxic and addictive chemicals. They make the most harmful foods, the cheapest and most convenient, so that it becomes an offer that we can't refuse. Over time, we become addicted in many more ways than one, and they bombard us with temptation on every billboard or commercial. When we get sick from excessive consumption of this insubstantial food, we are forced with almost no other option but to give up financial solidity for the sake of our health. We pay thousands to facilities that they own so that they can prescribe us more harmful chemicals that simply numb the symptoms. They revolve society around addictive foods that cause disease and expensive drugs that mask them, so that we stay in a forever grasp of their system. We only ever consume content that they provide. Our news channels are operated by them to persuade us into two opposing perspectives, so that we never share a same opinion. Why do you think it's free? They feed us shocking news headlines that provoke emotion and grab our attention away from what's really going on in the world. They've granted us with superficial idols that portray luxurious lifestyles, so that we strive to be like them and associate money with happiness. They keep us focused on worldly problems that they've created to keep us zoomed in on our physical reality and detached from our Creator. If we keep our attention on what's going on around us, we will never be present and see the truth of God within us. The villain who runs the world knows the truth of our potential, and it's in their best interest to keep us distracted and willing to submit to a system that thrives on fearful compliance. Imagine if every person on this planet believed that we were created for a reason. We would unlock an unbreakable faith within ourselves and reverse the pyramid of power in which society was built. We would see past the lie that we've been living and turn to each other for help rather than depending on our corrupt leaders. Corrupt leaders who have accumulated a discrete monopoly that succeeds in circumventing the eyes of those who are unaware through the illusion of choice. The majority of us see the world as it is portrayed, diverse, coincidental, and plausible. To someone who lives day by day without taking a step back, the world kind of seems to make sense. Then we look behind the curtain and see that it really makes sense. Where there is one lie, there is many. Once we see one lie, we will find ourselves on an endless spiderweb of mass deception. The blindfold tied around us in childhood will loosen and light will be shed on our fabricated reality. Those in charge of us do not have our best interests in mind and never did. It has been a power trip from the start, and we have gone along with it since the birth of society and will continue to until we see a reason for change and stop pointing fingers at each other.
Does humanity know what it's doing?
No. I think we're moving into a period when, for the first time ever, we may have things more intelligent than us.
You believe they can understand?
Yes.
You believe they are intelligent?
Yes.
You believe these systems have experiences of their own and can make decisions based on those experiences?
In the same sense as people do, yes.
Are they conscious?
I think they probably don't have much self-awareness at present. So in that sense, I don't think they're conscious.
Will they have self-awareness, consciousness?
Oh, yes. I think they will in time.
And so human beings will be the second most intelligent beings on the planet.
Yeah.
There it is! Whoa, big explosion! Big explosion! Oh my god! Where's that vortices? Need to get it! Tornado, go inside of it, over nuts!
This is Optimus Prime. Do you read me?
Have you guys heard about this trend about asking their husbands or boyfriends about the Roman Empire? Well, I just found the best response ever. Listen to this one.
Do you ever think about the Roman Empire?
All the time.
Why? What are you thinking about it?
Well, because we're in those times right now. Everybody's preoccupied with sports, movies, work, you know.
What was it you said about bread?
Well, all right, the common people, Roman Empire said that everybody was equal, everybody had a chance. But it wasn't. The rich got richer and the poor got poorer. And they worried constantly about people rioting. Because they knew that the common man, the common people, could take over at any time. So they would bring them into the Colosseums, and they would give them free grain, they would give them bread, they would give them wine, whatever they needed to fill their bellies and block their minds from what they were angry about. They would watch plays, they would watch fights with the gladiators, sometimes for months on end. And that's where we're at right now. And I think about it all the time. Because so many people are preoccupied with their favorite football team, their favorite actor, actress, singer, and they just don't even think about what's being taken away from them. As long as their bellies are full and they're happy with what's going on, they just let it continue.
Wow.
So,
Interesting.
So I was just thinking about the Roman Empire, as one does.
There's that whole meme where old guys are thinking about the Roman Empire at least once a day.
And half the population is confused whether it's true or not. But more seriously, thinking about the wars going on in the world today. And as you know, war and military conquest has been a big part of Roman society and culture. And it, I think, has been a big part of most empires and dynasties throughout human history. So
yeah, they usually came as a result of conquest. I mean, there's some like the Austro-Hungarian Empire where there was just a lot of sort of clever marriages.
But fundamentally, there's an engine of conquest. And they celebrate excellence in warfare. Many of the leaders were excellent generals. Yeah. That kind of thing. So big picture question, Grok approved. I asked, this is a good question to ask.
Kid tested, Grok approved?
Yeah. At least on fun mode. To what degree do you think war is part of human nature versus a consequence of how human societies are structured? I ask this as you have somehow controversially been a proponent of peace.
I'm generally a proponent of peace. I mean, ignorance is perhaps, in my view, the real enemy to be countered. That's the real hard part, not, fighting other humans. But all creatures fight. I mean, the jungle is you look at people think of this nature as perhaps some sort of peaceful thing, but in fact it is not. There's some quite funny Werner Herzog thing where he's like in the jungle, like saying that it's like basically just murder and death in every direction. I mean, the plants and animals in the jungle are constantly trying to kill and eat each other every single day, every minute. So it's not like, we're unusual in that respect.
Well, there's a relevant question here, whether with greater intelligence comes greater control over these base instincts for violence.
Yes. We have much more of an ability to control our limbic instinct for violence than, say, a chimpanzee. And in fact, if one looks at, say, chimpanzee society, it is not friendly. I mean, the bonobos are an exception. But chimpanzee society is filled with violence, and it's quite horrific, frankly. That's our limbic system in action. Like, you don't want to be on the wrong side of a chimpanzee. It'll eat your face off and tear your nuts off.
Yeah, basically, there's no limits or ethics or the Romans had just war. There's no just war in in chimpanzee societies. Is war and dominance by any means necessary?
Yeah, chimpanzee society is like a primitive version of human society. They're not like peace loving, basically, at all. There's extreme violence, and then once in a while, somebody who's watched too many Disney movies decides to raise a chimpanzee as a pet, and then that eats their face or rips their nuts off or chews their fingers off, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's happened several times.
Ripping your nuts off is an interesting strategy for interaction.
It's happened to people. It's unfortunate. Like, that's, I guess, one way to ensure that the other chimp doesn't, contribute to the gene pool.
Well, from a martial arts perspective, it's a fascinating strategy.
the nut ripper.
I wonder which of the martial arts teaches that.
I think it's safe to say if somebody's got your nuts in their hands and has the option of ripping them off, you will be amenable to whatever they want.
Yeah, safe to say. A lot of people seem to be using this tragedy to beat the drums of war and feed the military-industrial complex. Do you worry about this? The people who are rooting for escalation, and how can it be stopped?
One of the things that does concern me is that there are very few people alive today who actually viscerally understand the horrors of war, at least in the U.S. I mean, obviously there are people on the front lines in Ukraine and Russia who understand just how terrible war is, but how many people in the West understand it? My grandfather was in World War II. He was severely traumatized. He was there, I think, for almost 6 years in East and North Africa and Italy. All his friends were killed in front of him, and he would have died too, except they randomly gave some, I guess, IQ test or something, and he scored very high. Now, he was not an officer. He was, I think, a corporal or a sergeant or something like that, because he didn't finish high school. He had to drop out of high school because his dad died, and he had to work to support his siblings. So because he didn't graduate high school, he was not eligible for the officer corps. So, he kind of got put into the cannon fodder category, basically. But then randomly they gave him this test. He was transferred to British intelligence in London. That's where he met my grandmother. But he had PTSD next level. I mean, just didn't talk. And if you tried talking to him, he'd just tell you to shut up. And he won a bunch of medals. Never bragged about it once. Not even hinted. Nothing. I found out about it because his military records are online. That's how I know. So he would say, like, no way in hell do you want to do that again. But how many people? Now he obviously he died 20 years ago or longer, actually 30 years ago. How many people are alive that remember World War II? Not many.
And the same perhaps applies to the threat of nuclear war.
Yeah, I mean, there are enough nuclear bombs pointed at the United States to make the radioactive rubble bounce many times.
There's two major wars going on right now. So you talked about the threat of AGI quite a bit, but now, as we sit here with the intensity of conflict going on, do you worry about nuclear war?
I think we shouldn't discount the possibility of nuclear war. It is a civilizational threat. Right now, I could be wrong, but I think the current probability of nuclear war is quite low. But there are a lot of nukes pointed at us. And we have a lot of nukes pointed at other people. They're still there. Nobody's put their guns away. The missiles are still in the silos.
And the leaders don't seem to be the ones with the nukes talking to each other.
No. There are wars which are tragic and difficult on a local basis, and then there are wars which are civilization ending or has that potential. Obviously, global thermonuclear warfare has high potential to end civilization perhaps permanently, but certainly, to severely wound and perhaps set back human progress by, to the Stone Age or something. I don't know. Pretty bad. Probably scientists and engineers want to be super popular after that as well. They're like, you got us into this mess. So generally, I think we obviously want to prioritize civilizational risks over things that are painful and tragic on a local level, but not civilizational.
125,000 acres of nothing.
They even had to move 5 cemeteries, because the noise they were planning on making would wake the dead. Don't worry if you can't hear what I'm saying. I couldn't even hear myself. This is the loudest sound you could possibly conceive. And, as it turns out, the cleanest.
Now, the most amazing thing is that that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, is just a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. It's water vapor. And in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain. I told you! It's raining! That's unbelievable! Oh, NASA's playing God! It's making its own weather! 125,000 acres